Have you ever heard this president say one negative thing about white supremacists? Have you ever heard it?
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke.
You wouldn't even condemn David Duke, for God's sake.
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party.
I got back in this race because of what happened in Charlottesville. People coming out of the woods carrying torches, their veins bulging, and a young woman gets killed resisting the hate and violence, and the president gets asked to comment on it. What's he say? He says they're very fine people on both sides.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups?
Neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. Racism is evil, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists. Condemn the evil of anti-Semitism and hate. Our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. There be no tolerance for anti-Semitism in America or for any form of religious or racial hatred or prejudice. We must never ignore the vile poison of anti-Semitism or those who spread its venomous creed. How many times do I have to reject? I've rejected David Duke. I've rejected the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. From the time I'm 5 years old, I rejected them.
David Duke is saying to his supporters and followers, vote for Donald Trump. White supremacists are saying, vote. Do you want those votes?
No, I don't want them, and I don't want him to say it. I don't like any group of hate. Hate groups are not for me.
You've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem.
David Duke endorsement? Okay. All right. I disavow, okay?
I am David Duke, and this is a quick, unscripted response to the CNN interview today with Donald Trump. I can begin by the inaccurate reporting of the media that I have endorsed Donald Trump. Specifically, I have said clearly, and every time I've talked about his candidacy, that I am not endorsing Donald Trump.
Let me be clear again. I condemn the KKK. I condemn all white supremacists. I condemn the Proud Boys.
Trump's campaign told CBS News this publication is repulsive and their views do not represent the tens of millions of Americans who are uniting behind our campaign.
I'm not looking
Would you repudiate David Duke?
Sure. When we looked at it and looked at the question, I disavowed David Duke. So I disavowed David Duke all weekend long on Facebook, on Twitter, and obviously it's never enough.
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke, Ku Klux Klan, which obviously I'm going to disavow.
Do you want white supremacists to vote for you?
No, I don't. Not at all. How many times do I have to reject?
Why not disavow David Duke, disavow the KKK? What's going on?
I'm saying to myself, how many times do I have to continue to disavow people? And the question was asked about David Duke and various groups. And I don't know who the groups are. I disavowed David Duke, and I disavowed him the day before at a major news conference, which is surprising because CNN was at the major news conference, and they heard me very easily disavow David Duke. I disavowed David Duke all weekend long on Facebook, on Twitter, and obviously it's never enough.
How would you characterize in more words than one David Duke?
David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed on numerous occasions over the years.
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke. I've been doing it now for 2 weeks. You're probably about the 18th person that's asked me the question. When I put out that I reject KKK and David Duke, nobody picks it up. You know why they don't? Because they don't want to pick it up. They pick it up. You pick it up. Everyone else picks it up. You saw simultaneously, practically at the same time. They don't want to pick it up. Now, I have been asked this question so many times. I have rejected it so many times. No, I don't want them, and I don't want him to say it. I can't help if he says it, but I don't want it, and if he says it, John, if he says it, okay?
Do I want it? No.
And
do
you
I
want the supporters?
No, I don't want anything.
What do you think of white
times,
supremacists, by the way?
I don't like any group of hate. Hate groups are not for me. But I've said this before. The press hates me to say it. They just don't want to pick it up.
You've seen that tweet from Mitt Romney. Says your coddling of repugnant bigotry is not in the character of America. Your response?
Yeah, David Duke and all were disavowed. I disavowed him on Friday. I disavowed him right after that because I thought if there was any question, and you take a look at Twitter, almost immediately after on Twitter and Facebook, they were disavowed again. I disavowed him every time I speak to somebody virtually, and they just keep it going. They keep it going. And they said, we never looked at your Twitter account. We never looked at Facebook. I said, take a look at Facebook. It was totally disavowed.
So are you prepared right now to make a clear and unequivocal statement renouncing the support of all white supremacists?
Of course I am. Of course I am. I mean, there's nobody that's done so much for equality as I have.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race baiting. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. We got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man. And nobody paying David Duke no mind.
I happen to know, and everyone in America happens to know, that Donald Trump is not a racist. That's a tag that his opponents and the media tries to label him with, but he's not a racist. I mean, he did disavow David Duke. Hugh said he'll have to disavow him until eternity, which he probably will.
There's been a lot of emotion on the campaign trail, and in some cases, unfortunately, there's been some violence.
Trump has got to get on the TV and tell his supporters that violence in the political process in America is not acceptable. End of discussion.
Some of your supporters in Chicago were acting violently as well, and I have to say, the guy who rushed the stage yesterday at Donald Trump voted for you. Now, I know you're not encouraging the violence, but
Jake,
you need to tell your supporters.
Millions of people voted for me. If I have to take responsibility for everybody who voted for me, it will be a very difficult life.
I've always denounced any form of any of that.
Getting instructions from the president on a nationally televised platform is a dream of groups like the Proud Boys.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
willing to do
specific
that.
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys. Stand back and stand by.
And to say that they need to stand down.
Love for America requires love for all of its people. When we open our hearts to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice, no place for bigotry, and no tolerance for hate.